But we at Alevo know that this is just the beginning, and we have a lot of hard work ahead of us. And so we're prepared to roll up our sleeves and get things done. But we've been giving you a common message all day, and I could actually make my talk very brief, and all we need to know is that we've got a war on waste. That's what Alevo's up to. We've got a war on waste, and it's cool to conserve. Okay, those are really the only things you have to know. But if I can just take a couple more minutes to kind of tell you what we're doing. We are a for-profit company. That is our raison d'etre. We have investors, we have stockholders, stakeholders. We are here to do business for profit. And my title is Chief Marketing and Sustainability Officer. I've been the marketing officer for a while, then we decided that it was time to add our sustainability concepts that we've always had into a more formalized environment. And so that's what we've been doing. And sometimes when you are a marketer is supposed to make money. And that's what we do as a profit company, as a company needs to make money. And then sometimes you have another group, which is protecting the environment. And a lot of times these are two roads that never intersect, and sometimes when they intersect, it's not good. But what we do at Alevo is we look for that sweet spot. That sweet spot, that overlapping circle where profitability and protecting the environment intersect. And that's where that's our wheelhouse. And it's not only our wheelhouse in how we do business. With the Grid Bank, obviously, that's exactly what we do. But it's also how we really look at things across our whole supply chain. So what we call this is the Alevo ellipse. And we look to put that ellipse wherever it's practical, because this is not something that we do just as an exercise. We look for practical ways where we can do some things. But our real job here is turning waste into resources, opportunities, and profit. That's really what we do with our products, and that's how we look at everything we do. And I guess it really starts with our concept of Grid Bank. And the Grid Bank, we like to say it's for today and tomorrow. Now let's look at our company ecosystem for today. Well, recycling 101, this is the basic stuff. And actually Philip Morris had a fairly good recycling plan. Plastics, metal, electronics, wood, cardboard, oil. And we use this, again, with our ellipse model. We're either going to break even or we're going to make money with it, and we will. But that's kind of the basics. That's the starting point. Now we've got a big property. Victory Industrial Park is 2,000 acres, and the roof itself is huge. It's 40 acres, but we have a whole lot more acreage than just the building. The building and the roof are 40 acres, this building you're in now. So by lease, and this has been going on for a while, there are approximately 100 head of cattle on our property. That's been up to a couple hundred, down depending on the season, but you can see them if you look at the external parts of the property, the outsides of the property. We also have about 400 acres of crops growing. So the property already is following this ellipse model, and we continue those leases as we move forward and decide what we want to do. Because we're really just starting to look at this, and really sustainability is growing, because sometimes maintaining where you are today is simply not good enough. And that's said by Will McCullough, and he is known as the patriarch of sustainability globally. He has done some amazing, amazing things. And he recognizes that you have to have a number of elements in place. So for us to do that properly, just like Alevo Analytics, we are working with an expert who's bringing on others and looking at all the different components that we have throughout our supply chain, starting with here and saying, what can we do using the Alevo ellipse model to be able to, do things better, not just to sustain, but to rejuvenate and put back more than we took. And so this feasibility study is going to be completed sometime next spring when we're starting to roll out grid banks, or maybe a little later, but it'll be a 15 deliverable where we'll start to really analyze each and every component of what we do and say, is there a way we could do it better? And this, of course, isn't inside of the manufacturing wheelhouse, but everything outside of it. And if the manufacturing is the core of what we do, the surrounding ecosystem is where we're going to look. And we're looking at a couple of different concepts. One is called cradle to cradle. You might be familiar with the expression cradle to grave. That means it has a beginning and it has an end. Well, if a resource of waste can be recycled, then we can really look at it as cradle to cradle. It might not be the same thing as it was when it was born, but it'll give rebirth as a material into something else. And the other is called the triple bottom line, or triple net. And that's where we look at things on 3 levels. We look at it from people, the planet, and of course, profit. So when we look at things, what are good for the people that we're working with? And these could be people, all across our supply chain. Are we doing the best things that we can for the people? What about the environment? Is there anything that we can be doing that might make what we're doing in this particular sector of what we're evaluating better? And of course, we want to make sure that we're breaking even or making a profit on all these things. So let's kind of go back and take a look at what we have here. So again, there's a Victory Industrial Park. We have 38 acres of roof. And again, I'm not saying that we're going to do these things. These are the things we're looking at. Well, one of the things we can do is look at putting solar panel all on our roof. It's just up there. Maybe it makes sense to plug it into some grid banks. You never know. It could happen. But the other thing that we can look at is the picture of the rooftop gardens there in the greenhouse. That's Whole Foods in Brooklyn, New York. And Whole Foods is in an urban area. You don't have a lot of fields, so they've used the roof to have a greenhouse. And this is something that is subbed out. They don't do it themselves. They're not greenhouse experts, but they knew they had this rooftop real estate. Why not use it? So the materials that are grown up there are sold right out of the Whole Foods downstairs, and they are splitting the profits with the person that's running that. Now let's get back to where we are here. Well, we have some cattle, and we have some land to grow things. We also are going to be feeding a lot of people here. The cantina in its previous life was feeding 2,400 people, about 800 people a shift, 24/7. What if we could raise and grow things here in a very healthy, organic way, whenever possible, if it's practical, and use that as food for our employees, to give them great, healthy, local food. And the abundance that we might have left over, we could either bring into the community as some kind of a food bank, or we could sell it, or work with some other local markets to be able to incorporate that into something cool about the property. There's so many different things that we can do with this property, and we're not going to spend all our time on it because we're manufacturers, but we are going to look at it, and if we find things that make sense that we can work with outside contractors on, that is good for us, good for the environment, and falls in that Alevo ellipse, then it's pretty cool. So today and tomorrow is what we look at when we look at the grid bank and when we look at the other things that we're endeavoring. So I want to talk to you a little bit about something that we've quoted. And this is the Lawrence Livermore slide that we base a lot of our analytics on. And we see at the top, and it's kind of a very confusing slide, but we see of the total energy that's used in the United States of America, this is 2013, 38.2% of all energy that was used went to make electricity. Now you look over on this other side, you've got rejected 59% of all energy. But if you do the math, that 38.2 into the 59, we're wasting about 60%. Now earlier you've heard a number about 30%, and what we call that 30% is addressable waste, because a lot of that waste happens on the other side of the meter, the consumer side. Alevo can't do anything more than try to educate people, lead by example, that sort of thing on the consumer side. We are talking about what our analysts have identified as areas that through all the different stack services that Chris spoke about this morning, that we can really address. And so we think that number might be conservative, but we think it's also a truly addressable number with our combination of grid bank, Alevo analytics, and how we believe that we can redefine energy like that. Well, there's something more important, getting back to that today and tomorrow component. Today, in the United States of America, on that slide that we watched a couple of slides back, let me just see if I can go back. Okay, so on your left-hand side, we see all the different inputs, all the different fuel inputs, energy inputs that created all of the different outputs. And petroleum is the big one that goes into automotive for the most part. If we start at the gray box up there, 18% of coal is used in our 100% mix. But guess what? It almost all goes up into electricity. So when you boil that number down, it gets to a big number, which I'll get to next. But look at the top, 0.32. That is of solar. That's less than a point of solar. We talk about renewables, and if you look at wind is 1.6. It's a very small percentage in this country. Other countries a little bit different, but that's what it is, the reality we have today. And I'm going backwards all over the place, aren't I? So, okay, so back to this mix. That teeny little green line is solar. You can see down at the legend at the bottom. What is the predominant fuel source today in America, and in fact the world, for electricity? It's coal. And coal is a wonderful resource. Coal needs to be, in my opinion anyway, treated with the same kind of ellipse mentality that we look at, and certainly we need to look at ways that we can make coal cleaner and we can make it more efficient, which means it's more profitable. We use our same model and it works. Now, coal's not going anywhere, so we can work with it today. That's our today model. But we can move forward and look to change that pie shape. That's really what our plan is, but it's not going to happen tomorrow. We are very fortunate to have the fossil fuels that we've had that's built this country and this world in the industrial times that we've had. And now that we're getting to a point where we recognize there's not that much left and it hasn't really helped with some different environmental issues, let's do what we can to keep using it because it's not going away, but let's look at using that bridge to tomorrow, which is what we think we can do. We have assembled just an amazing team of people, many of which are in the room today. This was just taken a couple of weeks ago, and we have a great team of people, and they're international. This company is building our first grid banks in America, but again, my opinion, the mission that we have, a profitable mission, but also a very important one, is much bigger than just one country. It's something that we all have to embrace, and not just on the business side that we're doing, but on the other side of the meter too, the consumer side. We have to remember to turn off lights. We have to be mindful that that electricity that we're burning comes from the ground, and it's finite, 44% of it anyway. So these are the things that we'd like to bring up together. And just a couple of things that we've noticed in the team that we've built, and many of whom you've heard or spoken to today. And what we're doing is we're building true friendships and equitable alliances across all borders. This is a one world concept because we're all in it together. It's our atmosphere together. It's our finite resources together. Really, really important to look at that concept. And we want to keep our grid banks energy source or generational source agnostic. That means we love working with coal. You heard the WECC study this morning, how we can make great impact on coal. And that's what 2020, we could feasibly get enough grid banks, if we pushed a lot of them in that direction, to actually do that. But we've got lots of other simulations and lots of other places in the world where it's really important. And again, we can bring in renewables. My last point here, we can make renewable resources like wind and solar economically viable, but we have to have that route to do it, and that route is by working with the existing fossil fuel mix that we have today. So, again, back to the Alevo ellipse, profitable business, environment. And if you take that ellipse, we've got two circles. And if you push these two circles together some more, and you keep pushing them together, something happens. What do you think it is? What's big and round and blue and green? That's right. Planet Earth. What's the old Eagle song? There is no planet B. So we want to profitably do what we can to serve the planet. And thank you very much on behalf of Alevo's sustainability policy. And I also want to take a quick shout out to all the people that helped put this event together. You're awesome. Couldn't have done it without you.